Hey guys, this is Mike Wolf and welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Kevin Yu, who I've known going on, 8 years now. We first bumped into each other on the roof deck at a restaurant in downtown Austin during South by Southwest. And we started geeking out about the future of cooking and the digitization of the kitchen. And he had this company called SideChef, and they had this big vision for, connecting the kitchen using digital technology. And so we geeked out about that, and it was a really fun conversation. And this was like right as I was starting to think about the Smart Kitchen Summit, and we would have the Smart Kitchen Summit later that year in November. So it's like this. We were talking to March. I had the event in November, and Kevin came to that and spoke at it, and he became a fixture of the Smart Kitchen Summit. And so we talked about those days. But the reason we got together was SideChef announced a couple weeks ago that they just raised a new funding round, and we recorded the day after they announced, as you'll hear in the podcast. But I went to Spain, so we're just getting this out now. But that's not really important. What's important is we talk about how they're going to use the money, what his plans are for the future, and how they weathered the storm of COVID, went through the pandemic, and how they evolved over that time. We talk about what they're going to be doing in the future with that investment, and we talk about, quite frankly, the plateau of innovation. I've talked about a little bit in the smart kitchen, the connected kitchen space, and what Kevin thinks the reason for that is, and how we're both starting to see some possible signs of hope, some glimmers of hope for the future. So I really enjoyed the conversation. It was good catching up with Kevin and hearing about his plans, the funding news, and where this whole thing may be going. If you want to see the write-up of the news and the story, head over to The Spoon. You can find it there. You can also find a version of this podcast and find additional episodes as well. So that's it for now. Let's get to our conversation. Kevin Yu, that first meeting in Austin at South by Southwest, I think it was 2015. 2015. Yeah. We were on the roof deck of that steak restaurant. We were having a happy hour before we even had the Spoon or the Smart Kitchen Summit. And I was interested in cooking technology, and you came and we just kind of geeked out on that stuff. And you were telling me about your startup SideChef, this app that help people cook. And I think you're still kind of doing that. And you have some big news we're going to share today. You guys have really come a long way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the whole industry has, right? And you've seen it, from at the trench level all the way to at the top, working with all the largest companies innovating this area and the startups. I think we've come a long ways. It has been a journey of figuring out what works. It really is a true, everything they say about startups, trying to figure out what does product market fit look like, where the real value is. It's been a journey.
We'll reminisce some more and talk about where this journey has brought the industry, because I think it's at an interesting place, this idea of the smart kitchen. But before we get to all that, I want to talk about the news that you guys dropped today. You guys raised a series. Is it a Series B? Mm-hmm. I think $6 million?
Yeah, we raised $6 million, brings our total up to about 16. From some notable investors, including LG, led this round. But we also, it joins also with our investors of Electrolux, Fauzug, which is Vizug, Swiss manufacturer as well too. Just bringing in, different people from the industry. We really believe having a diverse portfolio of investors, but also partners, is really key to actually making, some change in the industry.
And if anyone wants to get an idea of what Kevin's up to and maybe where his company's going, you could get little signals by watching him on Instagram. Because Kevin, I was watching you with your stories. One day you're in Switzerland, I think, visiting Vizug. I saw you in South Korea. So you've been really globetrotting. I think you did a full trip around the globe over the last month, and probably a lot of this came together during that time.
I'm kind of glad, I think everybody was glad not to travel for a bit the first year of COVID, but I think after a couple of years, it is exciting to get back in person. It's very different to be with people and to really talk face to face about, what that future next step needs to look like. I think as we, as you and I in particular have been in this industry and watching it grow and develop, it's important to also bring that to different, leadership groups and all these organizations. It doesn't just take one. It is a consistent, iteration. I oftentimes think really back to Netflix. It's kind of cliche, but it's hard to remember that Netflix used to send DVDs out to our mailboxes, because the technology had not existed to have all of these videos on demand, right? And I think we're going through that process, and there's still a lot of exciting days ahead.
So let's talk about what you guys are planning to do with that money. When I look at, SideChef, like 5 years ago, it was a lot about this idea of guided cooking. You were doing deals with a lot of these, refrigerator, stove guys, the big appliance brands. You're putting together, and I think you continue to put together a catalog of recipes. But you guys, over the past couple of years, have started to do more shoppable recipes and kind of really try to monetize through that. And in the press release today, there's some hints of I think, some new initiatives. So maybe you could kind of explain, like, what you're planning to do in the next wave of SideChef with this new funding.
Absolutely. I think over these years, I've had the fortune to be able to work with lots of different categories in the food space. That's everything from, kitchen, as we've talked about in Smart Kitchen side, but also, everything from the big Amazon, Facebook, Google players who are also looking, at this space as well, and the rise of voice assistants, IoT. And then there's the media publishers, with a lot of great content there, and trying to figure out how does this all come together, right? How does this all evolve? And, a lot of, and let's be honest too, is not just the consumer experience, it's also where the money is, right? Who is going to fund the innovation, especially as we go into years where there is recessions and cutbacks to some of that, right? We see, layoffs in major companies even. And I think there's always still an appetite for that innovation, but what drives that is going to be different. And some of I would kind of categorize the last few years of building out in the smart kitchen, or sorry, the cooking journey infrastructure. This is actually bringing to light where we started as just a recipe app to teach a person how to cook, but then that
Yeah.
grew out and it was like, hey, wait a second, we can help you with not just how to cook that, we can help you with meal planning, we can help you get your groceries. We can connect that into a smart kitchen device and make that automatic as well too. We could then make that content also accessible through a Alexa or Facebook portal or Google Home Hub, and have that be able to be published across more places, have that experience, the entry point in that funnel in those different areas. And then that naturally keeps expanding, right? Now that we have this infrastructure of what we call end-to-end cooking platform, how then does that, now we built the highways out, how does that highway to this new destination benefit the whole ecosystem to get that change to happen, right? And this is where sometimes, those highways, whether they have toll roads or they have billboards or they have, destination off ramp, whatever metaphorically,
Yeah.
to how do we make sure that everybody in the industry is benefiting from that innovation that's happening, right? You first do need to build that infrastructure, which I think has happened, and that's something that we're very proud of being able to build with some of the top partners, in every single category. This is now unlocking the value of that. That is, call it the next chapter that we are spending, most of this additional investment funds on. So it's how do we build the layer of end to end on top of the end to end consumer platform? What does that end to end look like for B2B? What does that look like to empower all of our current ecosystem partners? How do we empower brands? How do we empower retailers with, again, this end-to-end technology? And we're also able to allow these different groups, such as a media group or even a retailer across the board, to be able to also have this highway or this end-to-end where people can be inspired and all of a sudden go straight into purchase, straight into planning. And there will, of course, just like Google Maps, there's a first iteration of it. And then 10 years down, there is, I know there's a crash happening, on a street next door, or there's a side street, a better street to take. So I think this technology will improve. Things like AI will help improve it. But beyond just making now this end-to-end platform available to all of these ecosystem partners, the other part I think you're referring to is we do believe there are a couple of crucial call it cooking technologies that will also be able to assist the whole entire ecosystem. And we believe, a lot of this is around image recognition technology, around food. That's still an area that, honestly, a lot of the open tech is not that great at. We do believe, smart can definitely be interpreted as, I put something into the oven, whether it is a deep dish pizza, a thin crust pizza, and the oven should automatically know what to do, right? And to not have to press anything. I mean, that is like really Jetsons, right? You don't even need an app anymore. You don't even need, any of these aspects. Such, image recognition, if it can be done very well, can also be used across the board, whether you're talking inventory management or in lots of areas across that highway metaphor. So I think this is, we're excited because this is an area that we believe can empower more than just one company. Yeah.
So you're sounding like you're going to expand into computer vision, machine vision, and recognizing food as a way to help folks cooking. So I mean, we've seen that in like products that are kind of the entire product, like from June, right? Or from some of these others that are building that into their ovens. We've seen refrigerators with that, but you're going to create a software that enables manufacturers to use your technology. Go a little bit deeper in what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think the image recognition. If we can do image recognition of food that is being put in that could automatically affect presets, that is, I believe, even some of the earliest companies how they were looking at it over the last, call it 5 years, even. But I think today, especially post-pandemic, the world has changed around food, and a lot of the technology maturities of all of those ecosystem players have also advanced, right? So how, we're very interested in taking that, basically the image recognition tech to be able to connect into the whole entire food ecosystem. And that will be able to bring benefits initially to, call it, an oven, right? And also everything from the retailers to media to even your voice assistants and so forth. So we do think it is a catalyst type of tech to be able, that we hope to continuously build upon our partnerships that we have. A lot of these partners right now, we already offer up a lot of our tech to be able to support them, and we will continue to do so.
I think you have a spirits brand as one of your partners. If I read the announcement,
Bacardi.
Bacardi. So how would you work, for example, with the Bacardi? Like, what is SideChef going to be doing for a CPG brand like that?
Bacardi is actually a great story because we actually serendipitously had their CFO walk into our office one day. It was a mutual friend from IDEO that they walked in, and they were checking out. We were trying to show them some cool stuff we were doing, like the Alexa and how it could walk you through step-by-step recipes, right? So, and this is a classic, startup story where we're showing that off, and then he was like, "Whoa, could that work for cocktails as well? Could this work for like, drinks?" And we're like, "Yeah, we didn't think about that. We were totally building this for step-by-step recipes." And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And then, before you knew it, like one week later, we're like, "Hey, we put up some recipes. Wasn't that cool?" In terms of, seeing those recipes live. Now, you can ask it for a classic margarita and you have a Patron margarita pop up to the top and be like, "Whoa, okay, that's interesting." And they're like, "Hey, can we do like hundreds of these?" And then before you knew it, we actually had tons of Bacardi alcohol at our office. And we were doing some great collaboration, some happy hours, and all of the above. And from there, it was quickly realizing, in the case of Bacardi, a lot of the tech that we're doing could actually also work for drinks, right? And this is just from face-to-face conversations. You're like, "Hey, what are my building blocks? What are your needs?" And coming together creatively to figure out what that looks like. And so we've taken that and we've gone kind of further with it.
So what you're saying, you're going to basically assist like a spirits maker, like a Bacardi, to help home bartenders become better mixologists. Is that the idea? Or is there also like a hook in there also to maybe someone sees a Bacardi ad on TikTok or like social media, they click through to like a kind of a shoppable, to a spirits recipe, a cocktail recipe, and then maybe there's an option to maybe buy it or a link to a store nearby. Like there's all these different ways in which I think you can connect and monetize. Are these kind of the things you're looking to maybe surface for them?
Yeah, I think, Mike, you are totally on it. Because of how SideChef is uniquely situated, really an end-to-end B2C platform first. we are able to take different components of this and be able to help a brand depending on the goals and KPIs and things that they need to hit, right? We have different types of solutions there. And oftentimes, what we see is that future of that cooking journey, being able to make a decision in just a few minutes on solving what's for dinner, whether that's the planning or having it ordered to you or then having the guidance to be able to cook it. A lot of this is actually applicable to brands as well too. And a lot of it is still technology that is not, fully saturated the market, in which I think there's a lot of opportunities for brands to take brand leadership in those areas as well too. I think Bacardi is a very forward-thinking, brand company that wants to take leadership in those areas. Again, we're very excited that they share some of that same vision, even if it's food and alcohol or
Yep.
beverages could be called different categories. But if the technology is the same to enable it, then we have a lot of synergy.
All right, so let's step back and talk about the space. We had those early days, we had the Smart Kitchen Summits, and it was all very early back then. And a lot of the idea back then was talking about how are all these cooking devices going to connect with the software layer. Alexa came on the scene, around 2015. So a lot of those early conversations were like, hey, let's use voice. And a lot of it also was around this idea of guided cooking. All the big appliance guys at the time, 2016, 2017 to 2019 were interested, but I feel like since then they've kind of gone into hibernation. Whirlpool, for example, doesn't go to CES anymore. These guys have been, doing not a whole lot of innovation, quite honestly, in my opinion. Where do you see this, the smart kitchen space? Where do you see these big appliance guys in terms of the digitization of the kitchen? It seems like they took a swing at it and they weren't able to monetize really quickly. And there was mixed success in terms of like selling this stuff to consumers. So I kind of want to get a feel for where you think this space is in terms of innovation, the innovation cycle.
Yeah. So first off, I think post-COVID is different than pre-COVID, right? I think pre-COVID, there was a lot of innovation in terms of ideas that were being pushed to market. I think needs started actually changing, like the actual demand for that innovation started to speed up a bit more, and it was different. People were working at home, but also, getting online grocery exploded, right, post-COVID. So that also brought in new money, new interest. It's almost looking at the macro dynamics of it, because I think, everybody pre-COVID, you have a lot of innovation leaders, both in, call it, smaller companies, and then also inside the larger companies, you had innovation champions, right? And they were also met by the same things that other, call it startups deal with is great. What is the value being added to users, and how is that going to be monetized, right? And maybe the second question might come a little bit later, but it will eventually come as well too. So it is, like the first piece, I'll just speak on SideChef's point of view. When we first started the company, we created a step-by-step cooking app. It was great. Those 95% plus people, you want to make something new, they didn't know how to make it. It was 95% success rate. They could make something new, anything that they chose, and that was exciting. But we're like, okay, that's great, but then how are we going to build a sustainable business model from this, right? It wasn't enough through the ads, so we didn't have a subscription at the time.
Yeah.
And okay, we had not figured that part out. We're like, this is just be cool innovation. People would love this, and it will actually help people, and that's good, right? So, and that isn't enough, right? And so there we're like thinking, okay, how do we offer more value, connecting with both smart kitchen and also grocery side, and companies themselves also go through that process. And I think for very large companies, they bet very, very big into it. And then that's the swing that you're talking about. And sometimes, if that misses, then the company itself will figure out, okay, what do they do after that swing, right? The DNA of that company will start to also show of like, do they continue and invest? Do they adapt? Are they able to adapt quickly? Will they find other models, to both improve product market fit or also add in, have in revenue sources? Will they work with others, or will they? There's always sometimes like, hey, do we try to build this ourselves? Do we try to, work with partners to be fast to market? All of these decisions need to be made, right? So I do think a portion of, call it the plateau that you've seen is, I think some companies after they have swung, they have felt like it's not worth it to take another swing right now. Maybe we don't want to be the leader in this area, or maybe they don't have a confident route, or sometimes even a confident, group to be able to lead those charges internal.
Yeah, there's been a lot of turnover, I think, in some of the innovation teams. That was just partly just time passes by. Some of the folks leave. Some of the companies get acquired. Some of them go out of business. We've seen Chefwing had investment from BSH, ultimately got acquired by Smarter. We saw Whisk get acquired by Samsung, I think it's 2018, 2019. They were heavy early on shoppable recipes. You guys and Init have also gone into that direction pretty heavily as well, because I think that's a monetization route. That's clearly a way to make money. Once people are doing a commerce action there, there's money to be made. But what's next in terms of like this space and kind of the software layer for innovation? Where are we going? I think I'm seeing signs that we're coming out of this plateau. I mean, I don't want to just be kind of a Debbie Downer, because I do think I'm starting to see some early companies. I'm starting to see some interesting ideas percolate around the connected kitchen or smart kitchen. Are you seeing those signs, or where do you see it going?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of potential around the idea of shoppable recipes. I think shoppable recipes themselves is just the tip of the iceberg. We actually see triple the conversion of people who call it recipes within a shoppable meal plan. We also have this other feature called zero waste grocer that we continuously improve on, which means if you are making this lasagna, maybe you're making from scratch, it uses 6 to 12 eggs, we will give you other recipes that use the other 6 to 12 eggs and drop your cost per serving, have you see that you're making smart decisions around shopping, what ingredients or what recipes pair with each other. I think we are closer and closer to having, with online grocer already adopting, I think we're closer and closer to having this experience be the I guess what is the word I'm looking for, the catalyst or that tipping point of usage. To give you also an idea, maybe more factually, we sent out over 3 million online orders out to our retail partners last year, through this experience. And I'm not even, I would love to call this experience 1.0. I'm not totally sure it's 1.0 yet, but we continuously really iterate on it. And I do think, these user behaviors will continue. Those call it, 3 million plus orders are useful, for lots of reasons, for both us improving our product, helping brands and retailers and different groups engage with customers, in a more contextual, smart way. So I actually, I'm quite bullish still in this area. I just don't think, we have that one experience yet where, hey, I need to solve what's for dinner. I can make that in 1-2 minutes, right? It's got to be, eating in has to be as easy as eating out. And as we get, into a little more of a money crunch, eating in becomes more and more of a necessity. So I don't see the macro trends actually changing. I'm actually very bullish about, where all this is going. And yes, also to your cyclical, that's where, people see a couple of wins and then all of a sudden, the next cycle starts.
Yeah, I mean, we need the down cycles to kind of regroup and spin out something new. We saw the cycle with the internet in 2000. I think we saw a wave of innovation come out of the 2008 downturn, starting like in 2012, 2013. We had the COVID downturn. Obviously, AI is kind of on everyone's lips now. I think that's going to drive, in a lot of ways, the next wave of innovation out of Silicon Valley. Obviously, a lot of it's just marketing buzz. The FTC actually stepping in to tell startups to be careful with the way they use the term AI, because they just can't say they use AI if they don't actually have AI. I've heard you talk a little bit about AI. Do you have an AI strategy, or are you using it in your technology today? And if not, do you plan to?
Yes, so we definitely have been heavily looking into the capabilities of ChatGPT. I think you will start seeing this deploy out on a commercial side for lots of different companies. It's not just the Microsoft Bing or their suite. I think you'll start to see more and more of that. So yeah, we are very active. We do, as a company, very much believe in the power and capability of it. I actually, on a personal level, am actually even more worried on a macro. I think, ChatGPT shows that we will have societal. I'm hoping that the country as a whole is able to take on the fact that this AI is a different level that can replace several jobs very, very quickly.
I think someone just tweeted the other day that Mark Zuckerberg has entered the chat, meaning that he announced their move into generative AI. So it seems like everyone's jumping on the train. But this has been a fun conversation, Kevin. It's been almost, can you believe, like 8-9 years since we first met? I've enjoyed watching your journey, and hopefully, I don't think I've actually seen you in real life since 2019, and maybe January 2023 or 2020 at CES is when we last saw each other. But hopefully, sometime this year, we'll get to see each other in person again.
Absolutely. And again, likewise, excited about, where the spoon has gone, and look forward to speaking more soon.
All right, Kevin, thank you for joining me. It's always good to reminisce about old times and how things have changed and where things are going in the future. I always love and continue to love talking about the future of cooking and the digitization of the kitchen. So I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it as well. As always, the Spoon Podcast is brought to you by me, Michael Wolf, and The Spoon. We're part of the Spoon Podcast Network. As I said at the beginning of the show, you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. All right, folks, that's it for now. We'll talk to you soon.